If you have come to this video, it's because something deep in your soul recognizes an uncomfortable truth. The more you chase, the more distant things seem to become. The more you strive to be loved, accepted, or valued, the more people pull away. And this is not a coincidence. It's a profound psychological principle that Carl Jung understood decades before modern neuroscience confirmed his insights. Today we will explore why desperation is the silent poison in all human relationships, whether romantic, familial, professional, or social. And more importantly, we will discover how this understanding can completely transform the quality of your connections. Here on this channel, we regularly explore these transformative insights from Carl Jung. Subscribe to follow this journey of self-discovery. There is something that Jung called energetic presence, a non-verbal communication that happens far beyond the words we speak. It's as if each person carries an invisible emotional frequency, and this frequency is instantly captured by the unconscious of other people. When you are desperate, whether for love, approval, attention, or recognition, your energetic presence transmits a clear message. I need you to complete me. I am not enough on my own. And here is the cruel paradox. This need, no matter how genuine, automatically creates repulsion in the other. Modern neuroscience teaches us about mirror neurons, brain cells that make us feel the emotional state of people around us. When someone is desperate, these neurons capture the tension, the neediness, the emotional urgency. And our primitive brain interprets this as a signal of danger or imbalance. Jung observed that people are naturally attracted to those who are at peace with themselves, not because this person is perfect, but because they emit a frequency of completeness. They are not trying to extract anything from you. They are offering their authentic presence. Desperation works like an inverted magnetic field. Instead of attracting, it repels. And the more desperate you become about this repulsion, the stronger it becomes. It's a self-feeding cycle. You notice the distancing, become more anxious, try more intensely, and this generates even more distancing. Self-determination theory, developed by DC and Ryan, confirms that all human beings have three basic psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and connection. When you approach someone with desperation, you inadvertently threaten that person's autonomy. They feel that you want to control them, possess them, or use them to fill an internal void. Think about how you feel when someone approaches you with a very intense, very needy energy. Even if you like the person, something in you automatically pulls back. It's not meanness, it's an instinct of emotional self-preservation. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to understand ourselves. The desperation in others bothers us because it reminds us of our own neediness. And unconsciously, we avoid mirrors of our own unhealed pain." True human magnetism comes from the sensation of free choice. When someone feels they are with you by choice, not by necessity, the connection becomes pleasurable. When they feel you need them, the relationship becomes a weight, a responsibility, an emotional prison. Carl Jung identified one of the cruelest paradoxes of the human psyche. The more intensely we desire something, the more likely we are to push it away from us. This happens because intense desire always arises from a place of lack, and lack is, by definition, a state of emptiness that tries to fill itself through the external. When you desperately want someone to love you, your behavior changes in subtle but perceptible ways. You begin to monitor every word, every gesture, every change in tone. You become hypervigilant to signs of approval or rejection. And this vigilance creates an energetic tension that the other person immediately feels. The human brain is programmed to detect predators and threats. And, ironically, emotional desperation activates the same alert mechanisms. When someone wants something from you with great intensity, a primitive part of your brain interprets this as a form of emotional predation. The Pygmalion effect shows us that our expectations about others directly influence their behavior. But there is also the inverted Pygmalion effect. When you desperately expect something from someone, you unconsciously create pressure for that person to meet your needs. And pressure generates resistance. Jung observed that authentic love always contains an element of detachment. Not detachment in the sense of indifference, but detachment in the sense of freedom. When you truly love someone, you want the best for that person, even if that doesn't include you. This is the difference between love and possessiveness, disguised as love. Desperate desire is always self-centered, even when it seems altruistic. You don't want the person to be happy. You want them to be happy with you. You don't want them to grow. You want them to grow in the direction that benefits you. And this subtle selfishness, even when unconscious, is perceived by the other person's intuition. Neuroscience teaches us about the brain's reward system and how dopamine works. When something is easily available, our brain quickly loses interest. That's why what is difficult to obtain becomes more valuable. Desperation makes you too available, too predictable, too easy. There is an ancient wisdom that says, "What you chase flees from you, and what you release comes to you." Jung understood this not as mystical philosophy, but as psychological law. When you chase something or someone, you emit the energy of lack. When you release, you emit the energy of abundance. The paradox is that you can only attract what you already have internally. If you are desperate for love, it's because you feel you don't have enough love within yourself. And this internal lack is exactly what repels external love. It's like trying to fill a leaky bucket. No matter how much water you pour in, it will never stay full. Cognitive dissonance explains why desperation creates contradictory behaviors. You say you love the person, but act in a controlling way. You say you want the best for them, but resent when they make independent choices. You say you trust, but watch their every move. These contradictions create confusion and discomfort in the other person. One of Carl Jung's most profound concepts is the mechanism of projection, our unconscious tendency to see in others what we cannot see in ourselves. When we are desperate for connection, we are not just seeking the other person, we are trying to recover lost pieces of our own soul. Jung said that every human encounter is, in essence, an encounter with unintegrated aspects of ourselves. When you feel overwhelming desperation for someone, it is usually because that person represents qualities that you believe you do not possess. Confidence, peace, stability, joy, or simply the capacity to be loved. The problem is that this projection creates a toxic energetic dynamic. You unconsciously place the other person on a pedestal, attributing to them almost magical powers over your emotional well-being, and simultaneously, you diminish yourself, assuming the role of someone who needs to be saved or completed. This dynamic is exhausting for both parties. The person receiving the projection feels the weight of being responsible for another human being's happiness, a burden that no one can carry indefinitely. And you, who project, become increasingly dependent, losing touch with your own inner strength. Neuroplasticity teaches us that the brain can reorganize itself based on repetitive patterns of thought and behavior. When you constantly see yourself as incomplete, and see the other as the solution to your incompleteness, you literally train your brain to feel inadequate without that specific person. Jung identified that behind every projection lies an unhealed wound. Desperation for connection usually arises from early experiences of abandonment, rejection, or emotional invalidation. As a child, you may have learned that your worth depended on others' approval, and this pattern perpetuates itself in adult life. The halo effect causes us to idealize people for whom we feel intense attraction. We see only their positive qualities and ignore or minimize their normal human limitations. This idealization creates impossible expectations and inevitably leads to disappointment when the person reveals their complete humanity. Projection also functions as a way to avoid responsibility for one's own emotional growth. It's easier to believe that your happiness depends on winning someone over than to do the hard work of healing your own wounds and developing a healthy relationship with yourself. When you project your incompleteness onto others, you inadvertently transform them into objects for your emotional consumption, instead of seeing them as complex human beings with their own needs, fears, and journeys. And nobody likes to be objectified, even when it comes disguised as adoration or devotion. Attachment theory shows us that relationship patterns form very early in life. If you had inconsistent or emotionally unavailable caregivers, you may have developed an anxious attachment style, always seeking external validation to feel safe and valuable. Jung proposed that true emotional maturity comes from integration, from recognizing and accepting all parts of yourself, including those that you project onto others. When you stop seeking external completeness and start cultivating internal completeness, paradoxically, you become much more attractive and connected. The process of withdrawing projections is simultaneously liberating and frightening. Liberating because you reclaim your personal power. Frightening because you need to take full responsibility for your emotional experience without being able to blame or depend on anyone else. Modern science confirms what Jung intuited decades ago. There is a specific neurological chemistry associated with healthy emotional detachment, and this chemistry is literally magnetic to other human beings. When you are at peace with yourself, your brain produces a combination of neurotransmitters that creates a naturally attractive presence. People in a state of healthy detachment exhibit balanced levels of serotonin, which regulates mood and confidence, dopamine, which controls motivation and pleasure, and oxytocin, the hormone of social connection. This chemical combination creates a presence that others perceive as stable, reliable, and safe. In contrast, emotional desperation triggers a cascade of cortisol, the stress hormone, which can be literally smelled by others through pheromones. Studies show that stressed or anxious people release chemical signals that unconsciously alert others about their state of imbalance. Jung talked about libidinal energy, not just in the sexual sense, but as general life force. When you are desperate, your libidinal energy gets trapped in patterns of neediness and necessity. When you are detached, this same energy flows freely, creating vitality and natural magnetism. Parental investment theory from evolutionary psychology explains why detachment is evolutionarily attractive. Human beings are programmed to feel attracted to partners who demonstrate abundant emotional resources. Someone who needs you suggests scarcity of internal resources. Someone who chooses you suggests abundance. The parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for the rest and digest state, only functions adequately when you feel safe. People in emotional detachment naturally activate this system, creating a calm presence that others find comforting. Desperation, on the other hand, keeps you in a sympathetic state, fight or flight, which is contagious and uncomfortable. Mirror neurons cause us to literally feel the emotional state of people around us. When you are at peace, others feel peace near you. When you are desperate, others feel your agitation and tend to pull away to protect their own emotional balance. Detachment doesn't mean coldness or indifference. It means presence without agenda. When you interact with someone without needing anything specific in return, you allow the person to relax and be authentic. This relaxation creates space for genuine connection, instead of connection based on performance or obligation. Neuroimaging studies show that people in meditative states, characterized by detachment from outcomes, exhibit greater activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for wisdom, compassion, and balanced decision-making. This brain activity is perceived by others as emotional maturity. Quantum physics teaches us about energy fields and how everything is interconnected. While it's speculative to apply this to human relationships, many ancient traditions and modern observations suggest that our emotional state literally creates a field that influences our social environment. The concept of secure attachment in psychology describes people who are comfortable with both intimacy and independence. They don't feel threatened by others' autonomy, nor need to control to feel safe. This internal security is magnetic because it promises relationships based on mutual freedom. Jung observed that when we stop seeking external salvation, we ironically become natural saviors. Not in the sense of rescuing others from their problems, but of offering a presence that allows others to find their own solutions. This is the difference between codependence and healthy interdependence. Carl Jung deeply believed in the power of conscious rituals to transform deep psychological patterns. When you recognize that your desperation is pushing away what you most desire, the next step is to cultivate specific practices that reconnect you with your own inner completeness. The first ritual is what Jung called dialogue with the shadow, honestly recognizing all aspects of yourself that you have been trying to fill through others. This requires brutal courage to look at your needs without judgment, but also without immediately trying to correct or hide them. Dedicate a few minutes daily to sit in silence and ask, what exactly am I trying to get from this person? What part of me believes it's missing? Don't try to answer intellectually. Allow the answers to emerge from the body, from emotions, from physical sensations. The practice of daily gratitude, when done with deep awareness, reconnects you with the abundance that already exists in your life. But not a superficial gratitude. A gratitude that specifically recognizes your internal qualities, your capacity to love, your strength to overcome difficulties, your accumulated wisdom. Jung developed the technique of active imagination, a conscious dialogue with unintegrated aspects of your personality. Imagine conversing with the part of you that feels needy. Ask what it needs, what it fears, how you can care for it without depending on others to do so. The ritual of free writing works as emotional cleansing. Write for 10 minutes daily, without stopping. Everything that comes to mind about your fears, needs, and desires. Don't censor, don't correct, don't judge. Just allow the subconscious to express itself through words. Conscious breathing is a powerful tool for getting out of the state of neediness. When you feel desperation arising, stop and take 10 deep breaths, focusing on feeling complete and sufficient exactly as you are. Breathing reconnects you with your center, your inner personal power. Cultivate what Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to hold opposing tensions without trying to resolve them immediately. You can simultaneously desire connection and be complete alone. You can love someone and not need that love to be reciprocated to feel valuable. The ritual of the divine question. Before sleeping, ask a specific question to your inner wisdom. How can I love without needing? How can I connect without losing myself? How can I desire without desperation? And trust that the answer will come through dreams, synchronicities, or sudden insights. Practice what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum. Imagining yourself completely well and happy even if you never saw again the person for whom you feel desperation. This isn't pessimism. It's emotional training to recognize that your happiness doesn't depend on external factors. Develop multiple meaningful relationships. When all your emotional energy is focused on a single person, you naturally become desperate. When you have several sources of connection, pleasure, and growth, no specific person carries the weight of completing you. The meditation of self-compassion teaches you to treat yourself with the same gentleness that you would offer to a dear friend. When you feel neediness, instead of criticizing yourself, place your hand on your heart and say, "This is a moment of human suffering. Everyone has felt this way. May I be kind to myself." Jung emphasized the importance of finding purpose beyond relationships, something you would do even if you were completely alone in the world. When you have a clear personal mission, relationships become complements to your life, not the foundation of it. What Carl Jung teaches us about desperation in human relationships is both humble and revolutionary. The path to receiving love is to stop desperately needing it. The path to attracting people is to first be magnetic to yourself. This doesn't mean becoming cold, indifferent, or manipulative. It means recognizing that you are already complete, even in your imperfect humanity. It means understanding that true love, whether romantic, familial, or friendship, can only flourish in the soil of mutual freedom. When you stop using relationships as anesthesia for your unhealed wounds and start seeing them as opportunities for mutual growth, everything changes. Your energy transforms from needy to abundant, from needful to generous, from desperate to magnetic. The final paradox is this: you can only have truly deep relationships when you no longer need them to feel complete. And when you reach this point of internal integrity, you discover that it was never really about having or not having someone. It was about becoming someone who can love freely, without agenda, without fear, without neediness. Carl Jung knew that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, is the greatest gift you can offer to yourself and to everyone who crosses your path. When you no longer need to be saved, you can finally offer salvation through your simple, authentic presence. If this message touched something deep within you, your like helps us bring these transformative truths to other people who also need to hear them. And by subscribing to the channel, you ensure that you continue to receive powerful insights based on Jung's wisdom that can revolutionize your emotional life. Your comments about how these ideas apply to your experience are valuable to our entire growth community. Share your reflection. It might be exactly what someone needs to hear today.